The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. Let's jump into the opening kickoff presented by Kickoff Coffee Company. Big news this morning, and I want to start with this because I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about Atlanta United and their loss to Columbus over the weekend. Probably we'll talk a decent bit about Real Madrid and their win over Liverpool. Try to squeeze in a little talk about Atlas with back-to-back Liga MX titles. Plenty to get into on the morning show today, but this has been bubbling up with Robert Lewandowski jumping over to the Polish national team and giving a press conference. And there were some initial comments out there that were mistranslated, and it's been corrected. But just in case you saw that and you're wondering why Robert Lewandowski was trashing Bayern, he was not trashing Bayern Munich. He is trying to get his way out of Bayern Munich, though, but he did not say something negative about the club. That did not happen. This was a missed translation. Fabrizio Romano has the best translation I have seen of what Lewandowski had to say. Again, away with Polish national team duty. He said, "My era at Bayern is over. I don't see any possibility to continue playing for this club anymore. Bayern's a serious club, and I believe they won't keep me. I don't want to play there anymore. A transfer is the best solution. I hope they don't stop me." Talked about the links to Barcelona. Reportedly, a deal is done between Robert Lewandowski and Barcelona. But are they going to be able to get whatever is needed in the way of a transfer fee? That's the question. How much is it going to be? How hard is Bayern going to try to keep him? This is a pretty serious statement by Robert Lewandowski. And no, it is not attacking Bayern as some of the initial mistranslations are out there. He didn't say Bayern is not a serious club. This was where the translation got messed up. He said they're a serious club. Now, he's also saying, let me go. Will they? Because some of their statements have been to the contrary. Will they let him go is the question. But he wants to go. Now, this also lines up with conversations about Sadio Mane leaving Liverpool and being linked to Bayern. Mane in, Lewandowski out. Then you have the dominoes that could fall in Italy with Lukaku wanting to go back to Inter. They can't do a transfer. They're going to have to do a loan to bring him back in. But then that's going to limit other possibilities. Are they going to be able to do Lukaku and Dybala? Probably not. Lautaro Martinez could get sold. That could make way for Dybala. Dybala could go to Roma instead. Silly season is getting silly. Lewandowski is going to be part of this. He is trying to get his way out of Bayern Munich. But no, he did not attack the club in some of the terms that made the rounds a little bit earlier. So if you saw that, think the initial tweet that got a lot of play, it's from a Bayern Munich account that is well respected. It's not a troll account. They deleted it because they had a mistranslation that started a lot of this. One more time, Robert Lewandowski said, Bayern's a serious club, and I believe they won't keep me. I don't want to play there anymore. A transfer is the best solution. I hope they don't stop me. We'll see what's next for Robert Lewandowski. It sounds like he wants to go to Barcelona. Sounds like that is already in progress. But will it get done? Probably going to have to be a transfer fee of a decent amount there. But then that money is going to then go to Liverpool to get Sadio Mane. And yeah, the cycle continues. But that's going to be a big story. We'll cover it this week. We'll cover all the other transfer sagas. We'll talk about it tonight on Soccer Over There as well. But wanted to get started with that because it's one of the leading forwards in the game. A little bit older, but still one of the leading forwards in the game. Trying to move. And we're going to see this more and more. And players of the age of Lewandowski, of Mane, Mo Salah, you still got to deal with a contract extension for him. If Mane goes, maybe that becomes a little easier. Maybe it becomes more important. Maybe it becomes more essential. I don't know. The 30-year-olds have a lot more power now in the world than they used to in this game. Used to be if you were over 30, you didn't get re-signed, and that was it. You're on your way down. See you later. That's not happening anymore. Luka Modric, still killing it. Benzema. Why do you need another forward right now if you're Real Madrid? Sadio Mane is going to force a move to get to go where he wants to go. Mo Salah probably next if he forces it or he forces a contract that he wants. Lewandowski wants to go. You're going to see more and more of this. It's going to get really, really interesting, as I think the biggest change in the world transfer market is going to be players having the power more than the clubs. Along with the players, their representatives are going to have the power more so than the clubs. That could be good. That could be bad. Sometimes maybe good. That's the opening kickoff presented by Kickoff Coffee Company. Make sure you're following them on all your social media platforms and go to kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You'll get 15% off by being a Soccer Down Here listener. And know that 10% of all of their purchases go towards youth development organizations that use soccer to accomplish their goals. Great people started this organization. That's why we're partnering with them. They do great work in raising awareness and providing funds to organizations that are on the ground, working with kids and using soccer to better their lives. So kickoffcoffeeco.com. Soccer Down Here 15 is the code that gets you 15% off, but then 10% of that is going to go and help kids in need using soccer in youth development organizations. Really excited to have the partnership with Kickoff Coffee Co. Let's see what John has to say as we get into Atlanta and Columbus and all the other things from the weekend. Busy times right now at the end of the European seasons, as we've had promotion playoffs this weekend. There's still a few more to deal with in some of the countries. Spain got really weird in the second division. Italy has everything decided from the second division going up, although they've got a wild matchup in the third division going to the second that Nick Alifi's torn about.
Yes.
Monza goes up for the first time in their history. Berlusconi's new club. That'll get very interesting. It was a wild game to watch yesterday. A lot of conversation about Nottingham Forest going up. Huddersfield Town going to be a little frustrated after a couple of VAR incidents. One of them was really, I thought it should have been a penalty. It was close. I definitely don't think it was a yellow for simulation.
Yeah.
Because there's contact, and that's simulation yellows are very inconsistent. I don't think there was simulation. I think there was contact. And if you decide it's not a penalty, whatever. I think it was. It was close, though. It's a judgment call, whatever. Had the Champions League final. We've got the Finalissima coming up on Wednesday. We've got the World Cup playoffs starting on Wednesday. It's a busy time, even though the leagues are winding down in Europe. And it's a busy time, even though MLS is going to go into a little bit of a break with this international break as Atlanta loses to Columbus before the break. I'm sure there's lots of takes. I'm sure there's lots of conversation about it. We will talk about it. We'll get into it. We're going to try to get into some of this other stuff too, but we will get into it. I guess buckle up or put on a seatbelt or get a barf bag. I don't know, whatever makes you feel better about it. Get your favorite stuffed animal and hold it, because, man, people are losing their minds about all of this stuff, and sometimes very unfairly. So hopefully that will go away, and maybe it will be like a blanket for you and help you feel a little bit better about things, or you just get mad at us because we're not going along with the flow. I don't care. You did salty takeaways with Jarrett. Jarrett's going to try to join us here at some point this morning, but if you would like to provide a synopsis of salty takeaways for people who haven't listened to it yet, go for it.
Biggest thing is that, I mean, you look at the result, and once again, it's set pieces, and, fans are continuing to be continually frustrated from the Department of Redundancy department early on a Monday morning. It's set pieces again that put the first goal on the board less than a minute in, and fans are continually frustrated with that. And Gonzalo Pineda is equally frustrated with it, for those that caught his post-match comments. And, once again, understandably so. And for folks who were helping us out with Salty, there's frustration with placing the table. But one of the things that I tried to, and Jarrett tried to as well, remind folks is that you're only 2 points out of a playoff spot, and you're 3 points out of 6, and you get a couple of wins strung together, then you're, 4th, 5th, what have you. And the other thing that I think that we tried to remind folks in Salty was that you're doing this once again without Ozzie Alonso, Santi Sosa, not at 100%. No Andrew Gutman in this match. You lose Ronald Hernandez after a handful of minutes. Mikey Ambrose has to come in, and then George Campbell comes in after the first half to finish up there. And all of these different pieces that you don't have, and you're still where you are. Yes, I know that the East right now, everybody was looking at 10th right now with Atlanta United's position in the Eastern Conference. But with all of this stuff that has been going on, it's just more of a reminder that you're still incredibly competitive in a crazy Eastern Conference. And I think that a lot of credit should go to Gonzalo Pineda and the staff and the front office for assembling what has been there to where you're still a part of this discussion. And I think that that's one of the bigger things that comes out of Salty is that, yes, with all of this stuff going on, you're still where you are, and you're really just past the 1/3 mark of the season. There's still plenty of time to sit there and get into the playoffs to where you can get into the playoffs, make a run. You know, Jarrett mentioned what happened with RSL last year. You get into the playoffs, you make a run, and you can chase after conference championships. And so I think that was two of the bigger things. Yes, you have a right to be frustrated as a fan because of things continuing to happen where goals are being allowed during certain situations. But at the same time, just remember everything and every obstacle that this team is having to hop over, and you're still where you are. I think those were probably the two biggest things that came away from Salty yesterday.
And it has to be reminded that when you talk about injuries, it's not making an excuse, it's reality. I hate that has become a thing that you can't mention anything. You can't mention anything that doesn't go along with the current narrative. And if you do, then you're either going to get insulted or disrespected, or you're making excuses, or you're not holding players accountable or whatever. When it's a fact that your back line has been different consistently. When your back line is different consistently, yeah, these mistakes on set pieces happen more often. They do. They absolutely do. This was awful on the set piece. It was a bad start to the match by giving the ball away, giving up the set piece. In my opinion, it's an issue between Ronald Hernandez and Bobby Shuttleworth. I think Shuttleworth has to make a play on the ball inside a 6-yard box. He's not decisive enough either way to hold his place on the line or come for it. And he's in the in-between zone, which doesn't work. Hernandez doesn't react quick enough either. And Hernandez hasn't been playing regularly lately on these set pieces. He's not locked in, and they get the goal. And then to top it off, in the cosmic joke of what the season has been with injuries, Shuttleworth lands on the outside of Hernandez's knee and kind of rolls it up. And Hernandez, I thought he was done at that point. He tried to stay on and get going again. He couldn't. Knee was swollen. I mean, we don't know anything beyond it. It's a holiday as well, so we're not going to hear anything today. I wouldn't expect, but they said it was swollen after the game, 90 minutes or so after it happened. It's not good. Hopefully it's a sprain. Hopefully it's not anything beyond that. The way the season has gone, man, I hate to say I kind of expect the worst, but the fact that he came back on and moved around a little bit makes me feel a little bit better in that. So maybe it is just a bad sprain, but it adds to the complications of this game. They kept the shape where it was at that point by bringing on Mikey Ambrose, which I think was the right thing to do because you've trained to play in a 4-3-3. You're set to play in a 4-3-3. You're not going to be able to readjust that easily on the fly. Bring on Ambrose. Once you see where the game is going, then they went for it at halftime. And the moves that Gonzalo Pineda made to go for this game were some of the most aggressive substitutions and creating a way to play that I've ever seen. You're down 2-0. Kind of got to. But he went for it. He didn't say, well, let's tighten it up and try to play off the counter or whatever. You weren't going to be able to do that because Columbus didn't really have any interest in having the ball after the 10th minute. Give up an early goal. That's what happens. He went for it. And then he went for it even more with more substitutions. But he went to 3 center backs. That gave you a little more security. It's hard to play that right now because you don't have an extra center back in reserve. It's hard to play that from the start. You can't add anybody. I mean, I've seen comments and it's on the Twitter this morning, like, not a peep from the front office. What can they do right now? They can't make a move. The window's closed. I mean, do they need to have a fireside chat? I mean, I don't know what you can do. The team has been playing well and winning games until this one. They had been undefeated in the month of May until this one. They're dealing with what they're dealing with, and it's real, and it's not fake, and it's not an excuse. And they've been doing the best that they can until this one, where they still, even though they gave up an early goal badly. The 1v1, hey, if you listen to this show, you've heard Greg Garza, and you've heard Michael Parkhurst, and you've heard me, and you've heard anybody who comes on to talk about Atlanta United talk about how aggressive Atlanta's going to be and how aggressive they've always been in getting numbers forward. Defenders are expected to be able to deal with things 1v1. Alex DeJohn did not deal with it well. He got turned. He got spun. Eric Hurtado, great goal from him. Haven't seen much of that from Columbus. Haven't seen much of that from him. Happened here. And he got it done. DeJohn needed to either win the tackle, which is winning your duel, which is it's 1v1. Like that's the way you're going to play. Or he's got to hold up the play and get some help from others. The biggest issue on that, everybody has went after DeJohn for not winning a 1v1. The biggest issue with that is how easy it was for Etienne to play the long ball in the first place. If you're going to have numbers up, you have to press. And when you press, and this team has pressed a lot, and they've looked good doing it, when you don't and you have numbers up, that's what can happen. You create a coin flip. You create a 50-50. You create a 1v1 that you don't want to have happen unless you have to. You didn't make them earn the 1v1 opportunity hard enough. It was too easy for Etienne to hit that ball because when it turned over and Columbus played out of the initial pressure, nobody stepped to Etienne fast enough to prevent him from hitting that long ball. And that's something the team's worked on. It's something they focused on. It didn't happen in this case. They get punished for it. I feel like Atlanta United made about 3 mistakes in this game, and they got punished on 2. And that's the way the season has gone. I think that's why Gonzalo Pineda, very frustrated after the game, said, and we need to do perfect games to get 3 points. That's the way it feels right now. That's the feeling. That's why there's frustration. That's why when you have the referee situation that you have in this game, I thought Joseph Dickerson was poor. He was poor last week against Orlando and Austin. He was poor here. Did he cost Atlanta the game? No, he absolutely did not. I feel like you always have to have that disclaimer. I'll put a crawl underneath the screen at some point and do that. No, he didn't. But did he affect the way the game played out? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I'd love to know the full details on what happened with Pineda being sent off, because if it's because he threw his sports coat down after either the goal by Dwyer was getting checked or the yellow was issued to Dwyer and not to Degenek for grabbing the ball and preventing the restart, throwing down a sports coat, if that's what got him sent off, that feels very, very soft. Very, very soft. If he said some magic words, then he said some magic words. And okay, then you got to do it. But why would he do that? Because of the frustration that had been mounting. Thiago Almada, absolutely can't do what he did. Can't do it. You're going to miss him for the next game now for not a good reason. Can't do it. I don't like Dickerson walking towards him in that manner either. I'm not a fan of that. Like I said on the full-time report, I hold the referees to a higher standard in that situation. You know the temperature's hot. You got to back away, not walk towards a player who is obviously upset with the way the game went. That's frustrating. It's very frustrating. Doesn't excuse Thiago Almada. Don't want that to be misunderstood. Again, I'll put a crawl down on the bottom so you get me here. Translation of Longshore, so you understand what I'm saying instead of taking what you want out of it. Almada made a big mistake out of frustration, but a big mistake. I have no issue with Pineda getting sent off if for whatever happened in that. That's fine. Coaches have to get sent off sometimes to make a point. He has a limit. Gonzalo said that after the game. I get it. I get it. If you've been having the conversation about these most recent games, you should understand that. Almada made a big mistake. Somebody also needed to be there to get him away from the situation. That needed to happen, and it didn't. I don't like the referee walking towards him in that situation either, though. I don't think that is at all what they are trained to do, what they are advised to do, what they are asked to do. From my understanding, and hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are told to do that. Most everybody doesn't. So I don't think that is the way that should have been handled by Almada or by Dickerson. But Almada's going to be the one who pays the price for it. He's going to miss the next match. And it's a needless missing of the next match. Still don't like what Dickerson did in it either. But the frustration was evident. And it was evident with the way the game went with the mistakes that Atlanta made they got punished for. It was evident with the way the game was called, and it mounted and mounted and mounted. And if you don't think that this team is frustrated just with the cosmos in general of all these injuries happening and seeing another one here, you don't think that gets in these players' heads and affects them on the field, they're not robots. You don't know how hard that is to deal with, where you have a lineup, lose a player, 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 lose another player, have a lineup, lose another player. I might not have said all the losing players that happened. Like, that's how rough it is. And it's a real thing. I don't like where they are in the table either. I don't like that they didn't beat Columbus at home. I don't like that they made another mistake on a set piece. I don't like those things. Gonzalo Pineda doesn't like those things. Nobody associated with the team would like those things. But they fought, and I've seen some conversations, and maybe it's just chirping on a bird app. I've seen some talk about them not playing hard and only playing hard at the end, and that really upsets me. It really does, because if any team had the excuse to be overwhelmed and shell-shocked and not play hard, it would be this one, and they're not taking it. And they haven't all season. And one game doesn't take away the previous games of good, hard work and getting results and getting goals. It doesn't. This team, if anything, needs some consistency. It's over a period of time. It's not about one game and everything's terrible, blow it up, throw the season in the trash, build for next year. I have to thoroughly disagree with that. You've got to get Joseph going. He played 45. I didn't expect him playing 45. I don't know if Joseph expected playing 45, even as optimistic and hardcore as he is, but he did. It's what the game needed. It's where it was. He was available. Sure, he said, put me in. Let's go. He's not sharp. He can't be sharp. I mean, come on. He's been out for a while. That's the first time he's played with Almada, Moreno, and Araujo on the field together. It needs time. Just like it needed time with Cisneros. And now you got a game where you probably could go with Cisneros on the flank and Joseph to start against Miami in a couple of weeks, and Moreno and Araujo. So you've got some flexibility there. And then you bring Almada in the next time. But you've got to get that going. Got to figure out what you want to do defensively, because is Hernandez out for a period of time? We know Gutman's out when they come back. If Hernandez is out, then you're looking at two fullbacks available right now. Caleb Wiley, I hope, is back for the Miami game. That was an in-game injury. Hopefully that is resolved by then, I hope. Hasn't been yet. So even if he is back, you're dealing with three fullbacks for two spots. Do you look at a little bit of what we saw as the team went for it late with three center backs? But then you only have three center backs right now. Again, this is where it's at. And this is what has to be understood. Whatever level of frustration that you have with results, this is the conversation. What can you do now that you didn't plan to do, that you didn't intend to do, that you don't want to do, that you have to do? What can you do? You have three center backs available right now. Campbell's got to be pretty close to 90. By the time you get to Miami, I would think that he's good for 90. Is it 2 or is it 3? If it's 3, does that mean you're calling up Noah Cobb? Does that mean you're calling up Nelson Orji, who I think has been really good for Atlanta United too lately? Maybe it is. Does it mean you're calling up Bryce Washington, who we haven't seen lately and I don't think is at that level from what we've seen this season? And he's been in and out with some injuries, so that's probably had a huge effect. But I think it's Cobb, and I think it's Orji behind Cobb. if you're going to play 3 center backs, you've got to call at least one of them up, or you've got to have Sosa available to be cover in case somebody gets hurt. And sadly, this season, you got to prepare everything in case somebody gets hurt. Fullback, you've got questions. Does that mean you need to call up Aiden McFadden again? Does it mean you need to look at anything you possibly can? Or are you in a situation that you were in 2019 where because of the lack of options on the flank for a fullback, for a wingback, you're going to have to convert somebody to play it? You know, Cisneros played in it, then Araujo played in it. Neither one are going to defend a whole lot because that's not what they do. In that realm, they defend, but as a forward defending, not as a fullback defending. So could they play as a wing back and know that you're going to be a little more lopsided? That means Lennon's going to have to stay home a little bit more. Yeah, but these are all like 5, 6, 7, 8 on the possibility chart, which is not easy to deal with on the fly. At least now you've got some time. Now players get a break, and they need it. They need it physically. They need it emotionally. They need to get a clear head. Good. They're going to do that for a couple of days. The coaching staff, I mean, now it is literally clear everything off the table, off the depth chart, off of everything. Clear, sadly, a lot of what you've worked on. Not all of it, because you're still going to want the ball. You're still going to try to attack in similar ways. You're still going to press when you don't have the ball. But are you going to do that from a different shape? Because they've looked best and they've settled into a 4-3-3. Are they going to have to change that now because of the personnel availability? They might. They might. And then that changes other things too, but you're going to have time to work on it. You're going to have a game against Pachuca where you can put it into action and assess. And then you're going to be back into league play. I think this Pachuca game actually becomes really useful for Gonzalo Pineda and his staff to figure some things out about what options he has to get to get to July 7th when the window opens. You get to July 7th, you have some different options. I don't know how many because I don't know how much cap space you have, but you have roster spots to work with, and you have the ability to bring people in on July 7th. You know, is that a fullback? If Hernandez is out for a long period of time, yeah, probably. Is it a center back? Very possibly. Can you accelerate the Noah Cobb acquisition and go ahead and make him a homegrown and have him in the mix? I think he's trusted. I think he's believed in. He's 16, but it might be the best option you have. Are you looking for a forward? Are you looking you're going to keep Ronaldo Cisneros? That's a question here. You know, can you get similar production for less cap space to be able to use that, reallocate that somewhere else? I really like what Cisneros has brought, but you might have to clear the room. You might need to do it in a different way just because of cap limitations. I'd hate to see that, but you might not have an option. This is where you're at. And that's all real. That's not any BS at you. That's what this group is thinking about right now. That's what you have to think about. That's where you are. Yeah, you got little details. Of course, you've got to clean up set piece defending. Of course, you've got things to do on the field. You got to make a decision at goalkeeper. Look, Bobby Shuttleworth absolutely deserved the opportunity to make the spot his. 100% he did. I don't think he's done that yet. And if there is an issue, then you got to look. Is it Rocco? I don't think it's Garces yet. I think that's a huge ask. Is it Rocco? Look, I don't know. Rocco's got one game with a senior team. And we saw it last year. One game. Rocco's not a huge guy to deal with crosses, to deal with corners. Does it get better? It'll get better at the ball at his feet. Bobby's been pretty good in that realm, actually, until this game where I thought his confidence was shook after that first goal. And he had a couple of bad plays with the ball at his feet. And if that's a problem, then, yeah, you really got to consider. I think everything's on the table. I think every spot's on the table right now. And you've got to figure out with what you have to work with that is healthy, that can play, what can you do to put out a lineup? What can you do to have options off the bench? What tactical solutions do you have with what personnel you have? And what can get you through the rest of June and the beginning of July until the window opens? And then can you get deals lined up and ready to go to where July 7, boom, they're announced. Here we go. Can that happen? Because that's not always easy either. Can that get done? It's a busy time. It's a crazy time. This was not the expectation coming into this year. It is not the team that was built. It was not the plan that Gonzalo Pineda had on day one of preseason. None of that was the intention. But when you lose Gazan, Robinson, Alonso, Joseph for a long period of time, Gutman for a long period of time, hopefully not Hernandez for a long period of time, but possibly, you lose an extra goalkeeper in Castanera. You've had the minor stuff that you always have. Aroju was out for a pretty decent period of time. You have the other things with Knox and Niggles and whatever happened with Wiley getting kicked or rolling his ankle a little bit. Those things are going to happen. It's soccer. It's a contact sport. When you get to all of those absences and all of those minutes lost, it is freaking hard. And I'm not happy with where they are in the table, but I am happy with the work they've done to get to that spot in the table based off what they've had to deal with. And that has to be part of the conversation. It's just such a difficult situation. It doesn't excuse giving up a goal off a corner in the first minute. No, it does not. Please, again, crawl under the screen. Translation, whatever. You understand that by now, I think. It doesn't excuse it. But when you have all these changes, that's when you have these moments happen. And it happens to every team in the world. And they've got to find a way to deal with it. And now they get some time on the training pitch. And the question's Hernandez. Now they get some time to figure out, do we need an extra center back on the field for security in the run of play and on set pieces? Is it worth going there because of where we are right now and sacrificing somebody else in the field? That's a question that has to be answered. Does it then mean you're going 3-5-2 or 3-4-3? Because those are very different conversations. 3-4-2-1 or anything like that, that's 3-4-3. I'm keeping it simple here. You're either going to go with 2 up top or 1 up top. You're either going to go with inside forwards who can flare out wide and your wingbacks can cut in, or you're going to go 3-5-2 that is very narrow and your width is from your wingbacks. Generally, of course, the game can take you a million places. And as we've seen 3-5-2s here in the past, or 5-3-2, if you want to call that, it's the same thing. If it was Miguel Almiron as a second forward, he's not a traditional second forward. That was a little bit more like a 5-4-1, honestly, or a 5-3-1-1 with Almiron and floating underneath. Do you go 2 up top with Dwyer and Joseph? True 2 up top. Do you go a little bit of a hybrid with Cisneros who can flare out wide, who can tuck in a little bit? Do you go 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 or whatever with guys like Almada and Adarauju or Moreno as those wider forwards alongside Joseph with 2 central midfielders behind, knowing that those guys are going to have to tuck in? And then where do you sacrifice somebody? Because if you go with a third center back, you're pulling somebody else somewhere. Is it a central midfielder? Is it Ibarra or Hosechu to get either Moreno or Almada playing there? That's not ideal. Is it 3-5-2 where then you're sacrificing one of Moreno, Almada, Adarauju to have them come off the bench? I don't think that's ideal. But these are the questions. And what we try to do in this conversation, and I guess it really upsets some people sometimes, because we don't just say what the Bird app says, or we don't just say what people want to hear when they're upset after a loss. You're upset. These things are wrong. Okay, how do you fix them? Did that sound like an easy fix? Did any of that sound like something that's simple and obvious to readjust the shape? No. That's the problem. That's why this is hard. That's why the overreactions, and I think the kind of more ideas that Gonzalo's not doing a good job or the players aren't playing hard, that's why I think that stuff is bunk. Just absolute bunk. I'd say other things, but we try to be a family show sometimes. Unless when Jarrett's hanging around, because he doesn't try to keep it a family show, do you, Jarrett?
No, he does not, but he also has like 8 lawnmowers outside right as he's about to talk.
That's always good timing.
Convenience.
I knew that's why I wanted to bring you on at that point. I didn't even hit your music because I knew the lawnmowers were handy.
There you go.
Yeah, the lawnmowers are providing the ambiance today.
They might have been sent, possibly. Allegedly.
Man, they probably were sent. That's okay.
Nah, look, I mean, sorry I rambled for a long time, and again, probably.
No, we had an entire show dedicated.
You can yell at me.
We had an
fine.
entire show dedicated to rambling. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I just took a lot of it.
Well, no, I mean, the salty takeaway was literally just dedicated to rambling, and then people reaching out afterward and going over stuff with people about it, and people got feelings about it. And I don't blame them because it's frustrating.
Hey, I'm gonna say one thing, and I'm gonna be clear about it. I do have issues with some of the feelings that people have had at people, and I mentioned Gonzalo, and I mentioned some of the players, like trying to say they're not playing hard or whatever. I'm at the point now that if the game goes badly, I don't even want to look at social media, and that's my own. That's my own. So like, that's not okay. And that needs to stop. It really does. You don't need to yell at the team account because those people aren't doing it. They're not defending set pieces. I can promise you that. I'm not. You don't want me defending set pieces. I'm not going to go up for a header right now. I don't get another concussion. So, yeah, I'm going to be useless on those. Jarrett's tall. Maybe he can.
Jarrett has a knee that is basically made of spaghetti noodles that have cleared the al dente phase at this point.
Yeah, I got one of those and an ankle to go along with it. It's not fun. We're old. We're not very good at soccer, so you don't want that.
I mean, Jason, you mentioned 7 different significant player injuries.
I mean, it's
plus
real.
Aruju, plus the knock to Wiley. That's 9 players.
And Sosa out for an extended period after recovery from sports hernia surgery. And he was out to begin with, and now he's out again. Like, that's another. Yeah. And that affects what you can do. Like, that's, I guess, where I want to get to with you, Jarrett, is just, okay, rabble, angry, frustrated, whatever. How can you make it better? That's not an easy question to answer at all.
It's not. Like, I mean, what do you want to restructure how you go about things? Because, for instance, if your idea is to restructure things and say, well, we should just focus on not giving up goals. Well, man, the defense is everything everybody's mad about anyway. And if you think playing a low block might be that solution, well, I mean, then you're asking 3 guys to get forward and to create stuff.
You're not going to play a low block, actually.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I know. We're playing out the string.
Yeah, no, I know.
But you're not.
But there's certain things.
Gonzalo Pineda's certainly not going to do it either. He is.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Very strongly in what he does, and look,
when you talk about what can be done, you have to put it in the proper context. And this club is not going to play a low block. They didn't play a low block under Frank DeBoer in 2019 either. They played a different block. They played a lower block. They dropped rather than pressed up high.
Yeah.
That's different. But that got castigated, even with wins.
I was about to say you were winning games doing that, and people were mad.
Gonzalo Pineda is not going to do it. He's not going to. So, like, your options are not that. Your options are personnel related. Your options are somewhat shape related based off personnel. Going 3-4-3 versus 4-3-3 doesn't dramatically change anything in terms of what you do and what you've built to do. It changes some. It puts people in different spots, but you can still press. You can still do all those things. Going 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, it's the same thing. That changes it. Emilio, low block is basically just you're not going to press. You're going to drop and play deep, and you're only going to try to play on the counter. You're going to defend basically in your defensive third. What Columbus did after getting the goal, what Real Madrid did. You're going to defend that way. That's what a low block is. They're not going to play that.
Which is funny because I was talking about the Real Madrid game with a friend of mine who doesn't watch soccer much. As he tuned into the game. He's like, "Are they just going to sit here and defend?" I was like, "Yes." Yeah. Carlo Ancelotti's totally cool with this.
Yeah.
Carlo Ancelotti's going to do this. He's going to ask Thibaut Courtois to make plays. He's going to ask his defense to make plays. He's going to get one moment from somebody, and it's exactly what happened. It was hilarious because I'm still mad because Jason got it right that it was going to be Vinicius doing something.
Don't say that too loudly because I don't get anything right there.
Um, well, I see. I thought it was going to be Liverpool that had the one moment, and they tried. Not for lack of trying. Courtois was just stupid
Yeah.
good, as was Eloy Room
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
man, I like Eloy Room's a weird cat. Let's hit this for a second because Eloy Room when he came into MLS. He's replacing Zach Steffen. You get into 2020 and the COVID year where Columbus wins a title. Eloy Room was absolutely on one that year.
Hmm.
It was really, really good. It was okay last year, and this year it's not been great. Like you want to
No.
get into advanced metrics on goalkeepers and even simple metrics, Eloy Room hasn't been amazing. Like he's been there, made mistakes, given up goals that honestly kind of in the place I feel like people are with Bobby Shuttleworth, where he's giving up goals that they're expecting him to save. And that dude, I don't know if someone pushed him into a sharp rock and activated his avatar state, but somebody activated his avatar state Saturday because that dude was absolutely possessed, and it took what will be in my collection of one of the goals of the week with Dom Dwyer getting on his bike. It took Dom Dwyer getting on his bike to beat him because any other day, like there were 3 or 4 saves in that collection. MLS's Twitter account put out a montage of it. There's 3 or 4 saves in there that if he doesn't make, you can't be mad at him. The one I can't get over, honestly, and it is Cisneros one timing it from the left hand side of the box in the second half,
Yep.
where he gets low because especially you're a bigger goalkeeper getting down that low. Courtois did this too. When you're that big, getting low like that is so damn hard. It's a long way to go. Also, he was shielded on the play by Joseph, and he reacted and got to it. I mean, he made a couple saves in that game that I was like, if he doesn't make those, you can't be mad at him. Like if he doesn't make that save late, where was it Moreno who put that shot from distance in the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the second last shot of the game?
It was.
Um, if he doesn't make that, you're not gonna be mad at him because
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, oh, that's goal of the week. Well, until Raul Ruidiaz did Seattle things.
Yes.
But it was just it was outstanding from him. And they executed exactly what they wanted to execute, and I think that's why I was so frustrated on the takeaway. Um, was coming off the Nashville game, you get the late goal, you get the momentum to steal a draw out of Nashville, and you come out in the first few minutes and you just looked like you were sleepwalking through the first few minutes. You have the turnover off kickoff, and then there's miscommunication. I tried to go back and watch the corner goal. There's 3 guys around the goal scorer at one point, and then everyone's just gone.
No
And
one's on the same page,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I do think
everyone's going in.
Shuttleworth has an issue here too. He's got to make a
He
play or stay on his line, and he's in between.
So in my opinion, I don't disagree. And in my opinion, I think because Columbus put a man on Shuttleworth and Atlanta put a man on the man.
Right.
They in this do what Nashville I thought should have done last week, which is put a man on Bobby, and because people were doing that to Brad and it was causing him all sorts of chaos. And Atlanta,
Brad specifically, this is something that has to be understood. Brad did not mind having somebody there. Now I know on the Olympico it was a factor,
yeah,
and there was a question about it, but Brad didn't mind that as long as he could see.
yeah,
He was okay with that. Bobby's not as big, so it's a different conversation, and I don't know Bobby's preference
and
in
like and
that.
I,
So
it's
I
funny
just
you say.
hold on one
Go
second,
ahead, go
Drew.
ahead, go ahead.
It's just because I don't want there to be narratives about this stuff that, oh, well, they did this because that. No. Brad didn't want anybody there because he didn't want one more body to crowd it. He could deal with a person in front of him. I don't know what Bobby's preference is, if he wanted it or not. I would assume that he would, and this is my assumption, my guess, crawl on the bottom, that because he's not quite as big, he would probably want somebody there to help make it a little bit easier for him. But I don't know that for a fact.
So the thing about it is looking at it, and I'll need to look at it more, man, to be positive, but it felt like to me that Bobby was thinking too much, or thinking a lot about that guy. Like he's got his hands on that guy, kind of guiding him away, and I think he's as worried about that guy on him that has a defender with him as well as he was about anything else. And then he gets caught in no man's land.
Well,
And
I'm gonna pull it up right now and kind of walk through it and talk through it.
that's fine.
It's an in swinging corner right now.
Yes.
And in the setup, it is, let me blow this up. And these numbers were horrendous, so it's not easy to get player identification when it blurs a little bit. There is one player in front of Bobby.
Adidas should
clearly.
be absolutely, someone at Adidas needs to be like hit with a whip or something.
I
with those
love
kits.
the cause, and I actually have some Prime Blue stuff
Yep.
from another line of theirs. It's some of my favorite Adidas stuff that they've ever done. I love the cause. I love it. They make the kits better, make the numbers better. Come on.
I still have the Parley San Jose kit from the night I lost a bet with y'all.
Yes. Just come on, Adidas, please give me numbers that we can see. So it is, I think it's, I don't know. I think it's Cisneros. But I think there's two Columbus players right there around Bobby, one Atlanta player. Mensa's on the back post. This is as the hand is up from Pedro Santos. One player facing Mensa right there with him in a marking like capacity. Franco and DeJohn are at the top of the 6, and there is one more Atlanta player between Mensa and the pileup with Bobby. So now as Santos strikes it, Mensa curls around. So he is closer to the end line. He's curling around. Again, it's an in-swinger. Okay, it was one player in front of Bobby, and actually I think it's Ibarra who is with that player now that it's a little less blurry when I pause it. He's bodying him up. He's kind of got that locked up. Bobby's got some space. The player that I can't quite tell who it was with Mensa facing him up, I believe it might be Brooks, is curling with him. Like as the ball's being struck, it looks okay. There's a free man there on the back post, not right on the post, but in that area. DeJohn is starting to move towards the near post as there's a runner there, and Franco is still at the top of the 6 covering that zone. So when the ball is in the air, it's actually overhit a little bit. So everything that was moving towards the near post, you have to readjust. Mensa is readjusting. So because of the delivery, I'll try to get it here in a second. I think it's Lennon who's with Mensa at this point. The delivery actually ends up helping, even though it's back, because Mensa was curling around. So when he sees that it's going to be hit deeper, I don't think it's a double move. Maybe it is. And if it is, full credit to Columbus for working this out. That, okay, you're going to make a loop around, and then you're going to kind of chop back to the back post. So it helps Mensa a little bit get that space. So when he cuts back around, Mensa gets free. Bobby is slow to react to it, and Hernandez is completely slow to react to it. And Mensa wins the header, and Bobby then collides with Hernandez, and he goes down. That's the part where it really gets bad, is when the ball is in the air. It's not the setup. It's not even the first move from Mensa. It's the reaction to it. Man, and these numbers are so bad. I think it's Hosechu who was with Mensa initially. Let me see if they give a replay on this clip. But Hernandez is completely static. And I don't know if Shuttleworth didn't see it or if he misjudged it. But they do on the replay. It's at MLSsoccer.com. So you go to the game page. It's just one of the video clips. Like, the ball is, I mean, it's almost over the 6-yard box before I see a reaction from Shuttleworth, and it's really when Mensa's getting to it that Shuttleworth is trying to backpedal because he's in the middle of the 6 at that point. Hernandez never stepped to Mensa. He never did. When the delivery happened and it took Mensa's movement where he was already kind of looping around to go to the top of the 6 into the middle of the 6, and it takes it more to the back post, that's where Mensa got away from Hosechu. Franco couldn't make a play on it because it's over his head. It's Hernandez, and it's Shuttleworth. That's the issue. It's set up well. It starts well. And it finishes horrendously. That's what I saw.
And it's one of those that I think I mentioned on takeaway, like that was what frustrating was you have such a good comeback against Nashville in a really weird game with rain delays and chaos, and then you come out and it feels like you got guys sleepwalking through the first few minutes of this game. I compared it to the Columbus game in 2019, I think it was, where you played in that abysmal condition where the field was just trash up there.
Yeah, I don't think you compare anything to that.
Well, hear me out. In the sense of what Columbus is going to want to do. You can't let them get that early goal, and then they get a goal in the 58th second, and it's just that was the thing you couldn't let them do, because then they're going to just pump it into a low block. They're going to, the bus is going to be parked in ways that the bus has not been parked in a very long time, and Columbus got exactly what they needed in that moment. And that's to me what was frustrating was,
oh no, 100%.
It was the one thing you couldn't do in that moment was give them that, or let them get that early goal. And it's a matter of execution. Because I saw, and then we'll get to the second goal. For me, the second goal is one of those where, and I've heard people talk about, the injuries don't impact the goals. The second one, I'll disagree on. The first one, I can see that. I mean,
no. Actually, Jarrett, who did I just say was at fault?
Hernandez.
Shuttleworth and Hernandez.
Those guys, they're not starters.
Yeah. The second goal.
So the injuries affect all of it.
Yeah. The second goal more so for me, because as you're pushing forward in a perfect world, that's Miles Robinson.
Yeah.
Trying to win that one-on-one, not Alex DeJohn. Alex DeJohn has been absolutely wonderful for this team. He has been, I think, more than you could have expected as your third center back, who is coming in and is playing emergency minutes because you've got injuries and
George
fourth center back. With George Campbell trying to get back into health. And, it's usually Miles Robinson in that position who's winning that one-on-one. And I'll take Miles Robinson 10 times out of 10 against a guy like Hurtado. And it's good work from Hurtado. Don't get me wrong. It's good work to get position, then win, then curl a shot around Bobby. And to your point, you talk about his distribution. It does, man. And I like Bobby a lot. Don't get me wrong. Bobby's got a great career in this league. It does feel like right now his confidence is just...
It only happened in this game that he's had distribution issues.
Yeah. And I've tried
to stress
this. It feels like his confidence is really shaken right now.
Yeah.
Because before this game, his distribution, you're right, has been very good.
It was way better than I expected it would be. That was my biggest question, was can they still do what they want to do in building up the play with him in goal? Because he's never been asked to play in this way. It wasn't a matter of he has and he's done badly. He's never been in a team that was asking him to be on the ball as much as this team would. And, he's 89.4% with his passes, and he's been involved in passing. It hasn't been a situation where they've bypassed him. He's been involved. And this game, after that first goal, was where it felt like, he had a couple. He put Alex he completed the pass, but he put Alex in a really bad spot on one. He had one incomplete pass. I mean, that's the thing, is distribution. He was 23 of 24, but two aspects. One of those that completed ended up forcing a turnover because he played Alex into the corner, and there was nothing he could really do with it. I think he had to concede possession pretty quickly. And he had one the one incomplete pass a bad giveaway. He just completely mishit it. It was a medium range pass. But the 24 number of attempts is what jumps out to me. Is after that, you didn't see them use him as much in the buildup. Now, to be fair, in the second half, 3 center backs means you don't need the third player to be the goalkeeper as much. That's a factor in this. Again, crawl underneath. Like this is real talk. This is not, well, it's obvious that they didn't want to use him because they don't trust him, which is one of the narratives that's out there. I think there was a confidence issue with him. But I think when you go to 3 center backs, you don't need to use the goalkeeper as much. Because if Columbus isn't pressing, and if they are pressing, they're pressing with 2, you've got 3. That's what you want. What happens is when you're playing with 2 center backs and they're pressing with 2, or they're pressing with 3 against your back line of 4, or even your 2 center backs and they tuck in, your goalkeeper becomes critical there. It's not as critical when the opposition isn't pressing and you've got 3 center backs. So it's a few different factors, but he didn't look confident is the biggest thing after conceding that first goal, where I think he's partially at fault. He reacted really late.
And it's just such a weird thing, even him coming off of Nashville, because at the end of the Nashville game, he makes a couple saves really good that keep you in it while you're searching for that second goal. And
I don't think he's given up any goals that I would say he should have had. I where I'm at with him, even the one that gets through his legs, he gets caught in between. He makes a mistake.
So his mistake is before the shot stopping. He puts him
right, but it's also not a simple play to begin with because of the defending in front of him with the space that was created. But what he hasn't done, and again, this is something that people, took shots at Gazan, which I thought were completely and utterly unfair. Gazan made, over the years, a number of big saves to not make a save that he should make, but to make a save that he shouldn't make, like Aloy Room did multiple times in this one. Shuttleworth hasn't given you that yet. And if he doesn't, and if he can't, and you have the other little things that we've talked about, like the indecision at times, and if there's a confidence issue and all that, then you gotta explore options there. And that's just the reality of the situation. He deserved every opportunity to make the spot his and not have the question come up. Well, the question's up, and that's just where it's at. But I don't think it's an easy answer, again, because it's not like Rocco is an experienced guy.
No, I feel like Pachuca's that spot, though, to drop him in.
Well, I think Wednesday is that spot with Atlanta United 2, and maybe the 11th, and then Pachuca, because you got to see a little bit more. It's just that's the issue here, is no matter what direction you go, like, this guy's no good, he needs to sit down. Well, then who's playing instead? Well, I don't know. Can we get a robot? Because that's basically where you're getting to.
This is, and Alex Pacino and I were having this conversation on the Twitch pitch. You are right now in Apollo 13, where they're trying to figure out the oxygen filtration system, and Gary Sinise is Gonzalo Pineda with everybody else around him, trying to figure out how to do square peg, round hole. That's where you are right now. Literally, with all of these absences and trying to figure out who can play, what you can do, what do you have that you can work with to try to fix the situation. That's where we are right now.
And in terms of fixing the situation, that's the other element of this. You give up a bad early goal, and when goals happen, it affects the way the game plays out. Game state is absolutely real. You give up the second goal. Absolutely. The second half is different than it would have been if it was 1-0. It's different than it would have been if it was 0-0. But you had 1.4 XG. You created good chances. We go through the same types of things that we generally do. Shot created actions, you had 33 of them. Atlanta's second in MLS. I'll have to double check the numbers after the weekend. They were second by fraction of points behind NYC, who was first with 25 and some change. And 7 of the last 8 games, Atlanta's had more than 25 shot created actions in the game. 7 of the last 8. This is going back a while. You had 22 shots. You know, you had opportunities. You had 9 on target. 9 shots on target. Now, XG 1.4, it's not the greatest, but you go back and look at some of those shots on target that were saved. 8 saves by Room. Yeah, there's a couple of those that I didn't think he was getting to. The DeJohn header, the Cisneros shot that Jarrett talked about, and the Moreno one at the end. I don't know how he pulls that off. Game state's a thing, but you were the better team on the pitch. No question about it to me. Outside of 3 mistakes, and you got punished on 2. And that's where this team is right now. They're getting punished on mistakes, which you make the mistakes, you give up the possibility of getting punished. And you're doing well. I mean, up to this game, and in this game, you still got 1 goal. You know, it's not like you got shut out and you were awful in the attack. You weren't awful in the attack by any stretch. But you've been attacking well. You've been scoring goals without Joseph Martinez. Like that's the frustration for me. And it's a very different frustration, I think, than maybe the fan base is feeling and all of that. My frustration is they are playing better than their record. They are playing better than the number of goals they're scoring. They're playing better than the individual results. And that hasn't come back to where it feels like it should be yet. And one reason why it's not is because of some of the mistakes. Again, don't misunderstand. They are making mistakes. They're not making as many mistakes as a lot of teams. They're not. But they're making mistakes. And I think that's why Gonzalo Pineda said, feels like you got to have a perfect game. Because right now that's what it feels like. Because they're not making as many mistakes as the opposition. They're not giving up as much as the opposition is giving up to them. And they're not getting as many points in the table as I feel like their level of play deserves. And their level of play is so much higher than it has any right to be with all of the injuries that they have to deal with. You've lost the spine of the team, goalkeeper, center back, one of the center backs, 2 of your holding midfielders, because Sosa's been out for a good bit of the year, and your forward for a long period of time. The spine of the freaking team. And you've gotten what you've gotten and honestly deserved more than you've gotten. That's my frustration. It's with the soccer gods that are not very kind right now. Maybe with a break, maybe it'll turn. It's got to at some point, right? But you've got to right now, because of the reality that you're in, limit mistakes. And the question becomes, can they limit more mistakes by playing 3 center backs as opposed to 2? And if you do that, does that take you to 2 up top or 3 up top in a different configuration than you've currently been playing your 3 up top? And neither answer is easy.
Please play that 3-7 system again, because you won't see it again, but it was amazing. I was cackling the entire time. So, 3 center backs and 7 attackers.
Uh-huh.
This is a game of FIFA. This is amazing. It
finished with the 3 center backs with Heinemann as the holding midfielder. Araujo as a left wing back. Lennon is a right wing back. So it was kind of a 3, you can say 3 with the wing backs and Heinemann. 2-2, kind of. Because at the end, it was Dwyer and Joseph up top. Dwyer came on as a wing back initially because Cisneros was playing the wing back, and until they got readjusted, Dwyer was out wide, and Dwyer was a maniac in this game. He was great.
Dom Dwyer wingback was an amazing experience, and I'll never forget it. If I can't,
it was completely and utterly unexpected.
If I can divert off that for a moment, because I want to do like a minute of Dom Dwyer appreciation, because this is the second time you have taken a player from Orlando who has been much maligned by their fan base, brought him here, and that player has done everything right to embrace the city and to work their tail off and have been productive. Because Justin Meram was great when he was here. Dom Dwyer has 3 goals this year and has been working his tail off. Even the game where he got a red card, he came into that game and tried to bring an edge and tried to bring energy and succeeded. He just succeeded too efficiently.
4 minutes, yeah.
And it's just I'm insanely impressed with what he has done, and I'm glad that everyone seems to have embraced Tom Dwyer for the work he has done. It's been absolutely awesome to see, and hopefully it continues to be a thing.
First bicycle kick in Atlanta United history for a goal. Dom Dwyer. Did not have that one on my bingo card. Jarrett, how long are you hanging out with us?
10 more minutes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's before we continue, John can tell everybody right now about our good friends over at Eliminize.
I can certainly do that. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Odor-free, clean, fresh air. There's only one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos, creating a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The turnkey process makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind to the environment. We like that. We like that a lot. It's a very green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. Different than our favorite masking agent that we have under the sink, because when you reach under the sink, you pull out that masking agent, you spray it in the air. That's all you're doing. You're masking. That's why they call it a masking agent. You're just covering up the odor. You're not attacking the problem. The proven scientific formula from Eliminize Service does that all the way down to the molecule destroying the odors. Pricing very, very easy, one of 2 ways, either by cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any question, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go is their website, eliminize.com. But do us a favor here at SDH. After the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from. So your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, eliminize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. As we talk through soccer on a Monday, Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything, SDH.
All right, before anybody starts any narratives, let's get into the Twitch pitch and get into comments. What do we got?
Alex Pacine, I have no issue with Alan Franco, but it seems like he gets stuck flat-footed on a lot of these corners.
Yeah, I think his blame in this one is minimal. Ball gets over him. I think it was overhit. I don't think that was the initial intention. If it was, then full credit to Columbus for having a creative set up here, because it's set up for Mensah if that's the case, to isolate him and try to pull this off in the first minute. Maybe that was something they spotted, but it does get over Franco. He's a little slow to react. It's not his zone where it happens. He is there, and I'm judging a little bit from how it was set up when Santos puts his arm up in the air. You had DeJohn and Franco. It's zonal, so everybody's kind of free, but they were especially, I think, there to win anything at the top of the 6 that was played in. If you need to set it up differently, look, maybe that's the question here. I think DeJohn's better in the air than Franco. I think Campbell's better in the air than Franco. Although, when you look at the numbers, Alan Franco wins the majority of his aerial duels, and he has since he got here. So it's this really weird situation. Maybe a little flat-footed, but the bigger issues with me on this one are Hernandez for reacting incredibly slow and Shuttleworth for reacting pretty slow.
Karan Hell says it feels like this weekend was a goalkeeper's weekend. Courtois and Room literally won the games for their teams.
Yeah, 9 saves for Courtois, 8 for Room. I think Room maybe had more difficult stuff to deal with, but that's not taking anything away from what Liverpool created. It's just, it happens. It's just the game. We've all seen it. You spend any time with the game, we've all seen this play out. It happens, and you have to try to find a way to get another one past them. And more importantly, when you're playing a team that has that, and Jarrett, we've seen it a million times, like you can't give anything up to that team because the goals aren't going to be plentiful on a day when the goalkeeper's on one like that.
Nope. And sometimes it's just sometimes it's that day where you can create stuff and a goalkeeper just says, nah, not today. Because the one that I can't get over from Courtois is first half Sadio Mane gets one on the half turn and hits a low rocket, and Courtois deflects it off the inside of the post and it stays out. And I'm not sure how he got to it because
Yeah, that's the best save.
Courtois is bigger than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and to get that low that quickly was just stupid.
Yeah, that's the best save I saw of the weekend. As good as Rooms was high on Moreno at the end, I don't know how Courtois got to that one from Mane, because Mane cuts it back and you're not expecting it to go there, and he reacts and he gets the touch to push it off the post. It's an incredible save.
Unite Chop Rise, when we were discussing what to do when the window opens back up, only way anything changes is if we bring someone in to help with defense. You have to make a signing. I personally believe, this is Unite Chop Rise, personally believe the season's done. Too many injuries, and I want Pineda to focus on next season now.
It's a playoff system.
Yeah, I thoroughly disagree. How do you focus on next season now? Like, you can't focus on next season now because you don't have some of the people that are going to factor into next season because they're injured.
Well,
like, there's nothing you can do.
So my theory on this is, because this came up yet in the takeaway as well, is that if you are just wanting to focus on next season, then you should be starting every young player you have. You should be giving George Campbell and Caleb Wiley
over
every minute humanly possible. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm playing out on it. I'm playing out the analogy,
and I'm answering it. Like that's exactly what the point here is. What are you not doing to prepare for next season? Like, Caleb Wiley's played plenty when he's been healthy. George Campbell has played in almost every game, and he's played in every game he's been healthy for.
Yeah.
And he would have been the replacement for Miles if he had been healthy at that time.
Yeah. And
there's nobody that you're sitting that should be playing to prepare for next season. There's nothing about the way you play because you're going to play this way to prepare for next season. There's no answer to that. It's a cliche that we use in other sports that, yes, if you play for next season, you might get a better draft pick. That means nothing here. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. So, I mean, what would you do different, and why would you do it in a league where you are in terms of getting into the playoffs? And if you get hot with this attack in the playoffs, you can go win the thing. You absolutely can.
That's what comes to mind for me is like if it wasn't a playoff system, I could understand it more because you'd be you're a ton of points behind. But
I don't understand. But there's nothing you would do different. Like, you're already playing young guys.
Oh no, I'm talking about just mentality of people. Yeah, you're not going to do anything different. But I mean, it's a playoff system. You get into the playoffs at this point, and you can certainly get into the playoffs. The East is going to be the East isn't going to stop being a basically condensed version of the movie Battle Royale. It's not going to stop doing that. Sure,
NYC have a playoff spot right now.
NYCFC is very, very good. Montreal is very, very good. I don't know what Philadelphia is. Sorry, Rich. Sorry, buddy.
They're very good. I don't know if very, very, but they're very good.
But the rest of the East is going to be cannibalizing itself all year. You're probably going to be included in that. You're going to win some games that you are going to wonder how it happened. You're going to lose some games that you're going to be furious about. The East is just going to be stupid, but you just get into the battle, pull an RSL if you have to, get in on the last day and go just start wrecking people's lives. You just want to get into the tournament at that point. That's all that matters.
The most important thing, and I will say it again, because there's nothing that you're not doing that you should be doing to prepare for next year that makes sense. Your two best young players are Caleb Wiley and George Campbell, and they've played plenty. There hasn't been an issue with them getting time. So, I don't understand what you do different. And this gets back to then the conversation that I saw as a narrative that I thought was utterly incorrect and honestly angers me about they only play hard in the last 10 minutes. That's garbage. So then you don't want them to play hard because the games don't matter. And I'm not saying Unite Shop Rise is saying this. I'm saying this in general. Like, the only other thing is then, you don't really go for games because why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You play to win the games in front of you. You play to get into the postseason. That's it. And you get into the postseason and you go dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you see what happens. Like, that's it.
That's where I'm at with it. You survive. You try and make a run into the playoffs because you have the attack that can get you there. And you see how guys develop. How is Caleb Wiley going to look when he's getting a bunch of left back minutes? Because I think there will be mistakes because Caleb Wiley's a young player.
Yeah.
There'll also be really good moments. We already had this conversation about George Campbell of, there are going to be mistakes. There are also going to be
and
some
he got
really good
crushed
moments.
for him. And people went nuts when he made a mistake. And were very dismissive towards his abilities when he made a mistake. And that's what Gabriel Heinze said last year. When all the call was play young guys, play young guys, play young guys. And it's like, I'm going to play them. And when they make a mistake, I'm going to get criticized. Like that's the deal here is there's nothing that they're doing that is hurting next season. That's the part that has to be stressed. So like the rest of it is a no-brainer. You're trying to get in the postseason. You're trying to make a run. All that's there. There's nothing that they're doing right now or that they will be doing that is going to affect negatively next season.
And it's also not like baseball or football or basketball where we know that how contracts are structured where we're thinking, okay, we're going to sell off these contracts. It's not like, if the Braves were in last place and you're thinking, okay, we've got a guy who's got 4 years left on his deal and we're going to move him for assets because of reasons A, B, or C. It doesn't work that way. Like,
no, it doesn't.
You're not going to, you don't have like you don't have like a Bogdanovich, like for the Hawks, where you can move him at the deadline and try and acquire something and just like reload, because the world soccer market's a different animal. It's not just MLS. It's the entire world.
Now the first part of what Unite Chop Rise said about like it going into the window and trying to do something about defense. I think you're going to have to, and it's not because of
totally agree with that
defensive issues. It's because of literal personnel availability. Yes. If you're looking at like quality, you might be looking at goalkeeper. That, again, I said everything's on the table at that position. That's on the table too. Can you go get a goalkeeper? Because the job is not claimed at this point with Brad out. It's not. You're going to have to get a little more creative at center back because you're expecting to have one of the best center backs in the league back next year, and you're not going to mess that up. So can you go get somebody who is demonstrably better that can fit under the salary cap than Campbell, who I think needs the games because I love the potential that George Campbell has, or Alan Franco, who's going to be here longer than, again, any of the other center backs because you're expecting Miles to come back. Like, it's not easy to solve that one. I think you're probably going to need a fullback. And that's the tricky thing is, what are you looking to get? We got to wait and see on Hernandez. That's the number one issue with this, because if you lose Hernandez for a long period of time, Gutman's 2 to 3 months, you're almost out of fullbacks. And then it becomes a lineup issue because you can't play the way you want to play. So you might have to go get a fullback. And that might be a reserve, and that might be a supplemental roster spot. It could be an Aiden McFadden. It could be an Emenike, who's with the Twos right now, who played with the Unite teams because he hasn't been getting games regularly with the Twos yet and was really good on the weekend. I had a chance to see him for the first time in an extended period of time. I don't know what it is, but I think that might be what you need. But goalkeeper would be the other one that might be either back on the table or now on the table for the first time as to looking to get not a reserve goalkeeper like Rocco, who essentially replaces Castanera on the roster in a supplemental spot. It's, do you go get a senior goalkeeper to be the guy? And so I don't know what that looks like because I don't know what kind of cap room you have.
So this is one of my concerns that I'm hoping people will be chill about, is if you do run Rocco out there, and I'm fine with doing it, after this weekend, especially with the unsturdiness with Bobby, if you decide to run Rocco out there, cool. If he makes a mistake, I really am dreading people blowing up at him like they do with George Campbell. I know, but it's just
sadly,
it's you. If you make that change, you got to remember Rocco is still very, very young.
Yep.
And he's probably going to make mistakes, and he might not get punished for them. He might get punished for them. There'd be no way to know until it happens. But just be chill with him, like in the same sense of like be chill with the fact that George Campbell is what he is. I'd love to. I'm gonna have to dig and see if Jonathan Tannenwald wrote anything about this back in 2017, 2018 with the Philadelphia team that ran Austin Trusty and Mark McKenzie out there when they were really wet behind the ears. And they made a lot of mistakes early in that season. They made it into the playoffs, and they were a pretty good pairing by the end of it. But I'll have to see if he has anything written about that. They ran young. Jim Curtin at that point. It's a different era of Jim Curtin.
It's Philadelphia as well, who wasn't going to spend.
No, yeah, but you ran young center backs out there, knowing they were going to make mistakes, but knowing they were going to develop, and you just you roll with that. It's not like FIFA where you can run a bunch of kids out of the academy at 18 years old, 17 years old, and control them and have them play flawlessly.
Exactly. And Gonzalo Pineda's played young players. So it's not about changing that to play young players because you feel
everyone except Tata Martino has played young players a lot.
100%. 100%.
Frank played young players a lot. Heinze definitely played young players a lot.
It's a situation, and you said be chill, and it's a situation that all of the players who are playing either roles or minutes that are more than was expected, that should be an expectation is, hey, these guys are being asked to do a lot. And like I said before, if there is a misunderstanding about how hard this team is working, well, let me try to clear that up. I haven't seen a team fight like this wearing the Atlanta shirt on a regular basis. And I've seen all the games. And that's not results related. That's fight related. That's hard work related. And I think it is an incredibly irresponsible, false narrative to say that this team doesn't have that. Now, I think it's incredibly disrespectful to the work that they've put in for that. And I will argue that until I see otherwise.
And as I'm about to check out, I will. Okay. We will look. I'll look ahead. And speaking of young players, because of the Almada situation, which I'm not going to rehash my thoughts. I did them on the takeaway. We already discussed that. With him,
he's out one game. We know of. Maybe they add another, but we know it's one game.
With him being out, I personally wouldn't be surprised if it's Tyler Wolff who slots into that situation.
He might be away with the U20s.
Oh God, he is away. This might be away with the U20s. Yeah,
he was on a preliminary roster.
Yeah, but if he's available, I would not be shocked if that's the guy.
Yeah, it gets that gets really tricky because Wiley and Wolf are on the preliminary roster, and you might need Caleb Wiley to start, and you might need Tyler Wolff for cover.
Yeah.
So you might not be able to let them go because that tournament's not during international breaks. It doesn't even overlap with international breaks.
I'm excited to read everybody. I'm excited to read everybody getting in U.S. soccer, getting upset at Atlanta United again over that if that happens because they literally don't have the bodies. I mean,
if you have to keep Caleb Wiley, people will have takes for sure because that's what they do.
I mean, depending on like Ronald Hernandez's injury, it might be, hey, we need Caleb Wiley because we don't have what do you want me to do? Call it Matthew Brick?
Yeah, I mean, you got to sign him to a pro deal first.
I know. Like you're just out of bodies, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the reality. Thanks, Jarrett. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good.
All right.
What else we got?
Soccer for Good OG, when we mentioned the trade window, is saying that this trade window we need to go for a shaman or priest and a sports psychologist. Get rid of the curse or curses and the yips.
Yeah, I mean the yips are those moments to be clear. It's in those moments where things switch off. Normally, like I think of yips with putting, where it's like and you're putting and you kind of jerk and send the ball off the green. Luckily, I've never had that. But this is like the switch goes off and the reaction's late. that's the biggest reason, honestly. And I hate to even think that way because I don't like to base your team around purely set pieces. A lot of teams do. I don't enjoy that as much. But does it help you if you can make the rest of the team function to have a third center back on the field who should be able to help you in the air in these situations? You got to consider it. You got to think about it. But then you don't have center back cover because everybody's on the field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're back to where we were earlier in the first hour, trying to figure out what options you have, which are not a ton at the moment because of the injuries and possible one with Hernandez. So you just have to figure it out and see what happens. But you can't have Hernandez react late on the back post. You can't have, again, on the lower end of the blame scale here, Franco get a little flat-footed, react a little late, and you can't have Shuttleworth react late in that situation either. You can't have three people where the ball's played into react late at varying levels of responsibility because Jonathan Mensah's going to score if you do that.
Couple along the same vein from Michael Valverde and host Nile. We'll go with host Nile. He says, the team is a talented team. Injuries are what is causing this team issues. I believe that without the injuries, this team would be near the top of the East right now.
Yes, I agree too. Go ahead and clip it and make fun of it. That's fine. I don't care. I think if the team was fully healthy and was the team that was built, they would be at the top of the East. I really do believe that. They'd be around the top of the East. Again, it's MLS. Results get crazy. You never know. Should know that by now, right? I mean, the way this league goes, Charlotte thought they were going to get something out of Seattle until the very end last night. Seattle has been poor. It's a crazy league, and it's crazy week to week. If you don't have the injuries, Atlanta is not where they are in the table. Period. Full stop. If you disagree, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're watching. You got to find a way to deal with it, though, because the season doesn't stop. So you take that, and that has to be part of the conversation about 2022. You cannot put it to the side. You cannot say you're minimizing things. You cannot say that it's an excuse. You literally can't say that because it is affecting the results. So 2022 is always going to have that next to it. But you still have games to play. So that's over there. And that will be paragraph 1 in the story of the 2022 Atlanta United season. Injury. That will be paragraph number 1. Maybe sentence number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as well. I don't think you've had quite that many injuries yet. Still, though, there's more than half the season to play. And you've got to find a way with what you have and what you can do to get more and honestly get what you've deserved. Like, again, like that's the other element of this. And I don't think it is incorrect to say that the way this team has played, they've deserved more points from games based off the quality of play. They haven't gotten them. So get them. But don't lower the quality of play because you can't lower the quality of play and then expect to get more results. That doesn't make sense logically. It's not how it works. And you're not going to get defensive to just park the bus and do that. You're not built that way anyway. So it wouldn't be a good strategy to begin with, and you're not going to do that. So you've got to be better and sharper and get what you deserve because I think they've deserved more than they've got. But you're never going to get as much as you could have had if everybody was healthy because that's the reality.
Michael had a philosophical discussion question. Is Major League Soccer a league where talented offensive players cannot play to their potential, i.e., it seems that muck it up and play defensive, meaning Philadelphia and Red Bulls, succeed and win?
How many MLS Cups do they have? Both of them.
Yep.
That's what it's based on. And yeah, they can win to a degree. And I look, I don't like the style of play either. I've been so clear in saying that. I don't like that style of play. But you want to go back to 2017 when Atlanta United came in, and you want to look at the Red Bulls, and you want to look at Philadelphia, who has become more Red Bull-like over the years. They were not as Red Bull-like in 2017. They've evolved more that way. And you look at Atlanta. First off, I would love to hear where people think Atlanta is in points per game in Major League Soccer since the start of 2017. Points per game. So that's including LAFC, who came in 18, Nashville, who came in 20, all the things across the board. Points per game played in the table. I would love to hear from people in the Twitch pitch where they feel like Atlanta United is. And for some of the people who think that everything's been a disaster since 2018, they'd probably be shocked. I'd love to hear that. I'm not going to wait for everybody to chime in, but I'd love to hear what people think before I reveal it. LAFC is not number one, by the way, and they don't have an MLS Cup either. A team that does have an MLS Cup is number one, New York City. And they've been very consistent and very good before they got that MLS Cup, which was their first. 1.7 points per game. 1.703 if you want to go further. LAFC 1.691. They have a supporter shield. Third on the list is Seattle, 1.657. Very consistent. In that time frame, they have one MLS Cup since 2017. They have 2019 in the books. Then you get into John's favorite word, a gaggle, at 456. 1.578, 1.576, and 1.572. Philadelphia 4, Atlanta 5, Red Bulls 6. So Atlanta is succeeding over the time since they've come into the league at the same level as the others. So I am never, and this is personal preference, and I think the numbers back it up. And Atlanta also has something those two don't. They have an MLS Cup and an Open Cup. I'm never going to opt for, you can't have attacking players because of the way the league is, and you got to be defensive. I'm never going to hope for that, and I don't think this club's going to go down that road, because the one time that they were somewhat defensive under Frank de Boer, people flipped out, even when they were winning. So, like, I bring that up because, look, I see people who were flipping out then, who are flipping out now. They're flipping out then because there wasn't enough attack, and flipping out now because there's not enough results. And you can't have both. You can't guarantee both. There's no guarantees for any team in the world, let alone in this league. They're right there with those teams that play that way. Just for interest's sake, the rest of it, Portland is number 7. Nashville is number 8 in points per game. Remember, not quite as many games. It came in 20, and that was a shortened year. They've only played one full season so far. It's crazy. Nashville 8, Sporting Kansas City 9 at 1.506, and 10 is New England under 1.5, 1.465. Remember, they weren't all that great in 17 and 18 especially. They were pretty bad in 18. That's the top 10. Your teams that have won MLS Cups in that time frame. Toronto, they're 14 overall in points per game. 17 was great. 18 was bad. 21 was bad. 20 was actually pretty good. 19 was solid. They made a good run in the postseason. They were 4th in the East, and this year not so good. 18 was Atlanta. 19 was Seattle. 20 was Columbus. They're 11 on points per game. Fairly consistent. 19 wasn't good from them. 20 is when they got their MLS Cup in a 23-game season. 21 wasn't great, and this year's not great. So that's 20, and then 21 was New York City. So, and they were number 1. I was a little surprised that New York City was number 1. I thought it'd be LAFC based off regular season, but LAFC's had a couple of years. LAFC 1.691, Atlanta 1.576. That's 2-5. That's the difference in points per game. It's hard. Look, it's hard. But I think this team's always going to attack. I don't think they're going to or need to not be an attack-minded team or sign good young attacking players. I'm not sure why the narrative nationally has now shifted, and it seems to be an in vogue thing to talk about and write about, of signing expensive, young, talented attacking players is bad. I don't think that it is. I don't like that narrative because I don't think it is a good storyline for the league in general. I don't think it's accurate, number one, which is the number one reason I don't like it. Number two, I think people have wanted the league to spend money, and they're spending it. Oh, but don't spend it that way. You're not going to get established guys for that level of money that are potentially at the same level as the young guys. Established guys like 25 to 29-year-olds, 30-year-olds. They're going to, the ones that you were going to spend that same level on are not going to be at the level that these young guys could be at. And all clubs around the world, all leagues around the world sign young players for higher prices because of the potential. Of course, you're going to miss. Every team does. Every league does. You're going to miss on some. The scouting has to always continually evolve and improve. But the league needs to spend money to be part of the business of making money. If you spend on the right guys and you have coaches that develop them well, you're going to make money on the other side. Are you going to double your money? Probably not all the time, probably not often. Can you make some? Yes, you absolutely can. But I disagree with the narrative that's a bad thing to buy young attacking talent. And I don't like that that's now something that I think is being peddled and being bought. I think some people are buying into it. And there's a million different ways to build a team, and teams are going to make that. I mean, New York City, they've done both in their time. They went veteran, older guys, got away from that. They're signing young guys or maybe paying a little bit less, and they have the city football group banner to bank on there, which helps them. But they're going out and spending money and buying guys. Tyler Magno didn't come cheap. And we're getting to like 8-9 million versus 15-16 million. We're kind of splitting hairs on this is good, this is bad. Like, come on, really? So they're, again, number one. LAFC, yeah, they brought in young guys. Now they hit with Rossi in a big way because they didn't have to spend a ton coming from Peñarol in Uruguay. Little better market there in terms of spending level, and they hit. Brian Rodriguez was supposed to be more of a sure thing, and they haven't completely hit with him.
Right.
And they've went with some other guys, and they brought in Vela on top of all that. They needed a star in Los Angeles, different market, different situation. 3 is Seattle. They've spent. Are they spending the 15-16s? No, but they've spent. Raul Ruiz didn't come cheap. Like, they've spent, and they've paid salary. 4, Philadelphia, they have not spent, and they've developed. And they play a style now that suits developing guys from within. Same with Red Bulls. Atlanta has spent. And they've got an MLS Cup and a U.S. Open Cup to show for it. And the 5th best points per game since 2017 in the league. It's not like they've underperformed. Nobody's won more than one MLS Cup since 2017. I don't think anybody's won more than one Open Cup because we haven't had ones in 20 and 21.
Right.
But, like, that's not a bad thing. So and again, there is obviously, and you guys know this by now, if you've listened to the show, or if you still listen to the show, you haven't turned it off by now, you know that I'm always going to lean towards wanting attacking players rather than going out and spending on defensive players and being defensive. You need to invest in the defense, and Atlanta United has. Alan Franco didn't come cheap, and he's been far better than he gets credit for. Does he make mistakes? Yes, he makes mistakes. Miles Robinson got beat on a 1v1 earlier this season too, so he's not infallible either. You spend initially, and you paid money to get LGP and Parkhurst in here. Moves didn't come cheap. They invested more defensively than a lot of expansion teams did when they first came in, and the teams that have been good since have done the same. The teams that haven't have not. So, yeah, you have to invest some, but I don't think it is a bad thing if a club has the money to spend and they want attacking talent to go buy young attacking talent rather than lesser talent for the same price that they've committed to spending. That is going to be a 26-year-old who is what they are versus a 20-year-old who could be way up here. And if we're going to get specific about this year's team, Thiago Almada could be way up here. He's pretty freaking high right now, even if he gets frustrated and gets into it with a referee who does not diffuse the situation and throw some gasoline on it. Yes, I don't love that. But as a player, he has the potential to be the most talented player in the history of this league.
Bernd Ersberger comes in, and we were discussing goalkeepers.
Yep.
He says, I really liked how aggressive Vicente Reyes came out on all crosses for the twos on Friday. None of our other goalies has ever played that way, trying to completely command the small area. Shuttleworth definitely doesn't play that way, and neither does Gazan for the most part. I prefer that aggression by goalies.
I don't care about the aggression level. I just want it to be consistent. You can't get stuck in between. I think Brad's more aggressive than Shuttleworth. He's also bigger, which helps you. Reyes, pretty good size on a pretty good wingspan from Vicente Reyes as well. He's going in to train with Chile's national team right now. Reyes also missed on one too. That could have ended up being a big mistake. So like just being aggressive doesn't always fix it either. I don't care if you're aggressive or not aggressive and you stay on your line as long as you are one or the other consistently and not floating around back and forth or getting stuck in between. Whichever way, play to your strengths. And I think right now, and Brad didn't really have this issue, Shuttleworth is right now. I think he's getting caught in between too much. He's not decisive with his decisions. And a lot of times when you're not decisive, it's a little bit of a confidence issue, and that can transmit to the rest of the team. But I don't think he handled the cross well. I think Brad would have handled it differently, and other goalkeepers would too. But not all of them, because not everybody plays that way.
Emilio, is there a way to combine defensive sturdiness without compromising offensive capabilities and chances, at least until we get players healthier?
Yeah, I wish there was a way to do that, but that's the holy grail of soccer.
He says, I remember Parkey saying a few weeks ago that he didn't think the defense needed to be so involved in the offense. Maybe I misunderstood.
No, he did not say that. No.
And I realized this may not be what we want to do. Can't there be another way to display flexibility?
No, he didn't say that. And it's not about flexibility, Emilio. It's you can't be, because you only have so many players on the field. And again, like because so much of everything right now is a reflection of the public conversation about things, I do have to go back to 2019 when they were not committing as many numbers forward, not scoring as many goals, because usually that goes hand in hand, and not conceding as many goals. And that was unacceptable for a loud majority. Maybe it was a loud minority. Maybe I'm incorrect there, but a loud majority on the social media platforms, that was not acceptable. The more attack-minded you are, obviously there's a scale, and you can be very attack-minded, and you can be attack-minded, and you can be somewhat neutral, and you can be somewhat defensive, and you can be very defensive. If you want to break it into 5, it's probably 500 in terms of that scale. But generally, this team is going to get numbers forward, and this team has always gotten numbers forward. The only time that they were really not a team that was risky with their attack was the playoffs in 2018, and really going into it more so than how it finished because of some of the opponents towards the end, and the early portion of 2019. After the first few games. That's really it. Outside of that, they like to get numbers forward. They like to get fullbacks forward. They always have. I think they always will. I think it's the profile of the player you want. What we talked about earlier is the conversation of trying to find a little of both is.
So I thought I would dress up for today's.
What are you doing, John?
Sorry, just buzzing through things, and I thought I was on mute.
Okay, somebody's dressing up for things.
Yes.
What we said earlier about playing 3 center backs is the only way you can try to rebalance it a little bit. But even there, and we talk about it all the time when they're in 3 center backs, if the other team has 1 forward and they're not really pressing, then one of those center backs has to get forward to help progress the play, and then you're back to the same numbers going forward as you were. It's just a different personnel grouping. So no, I mean, there's not a magic formula of being 100% sturdy defensively and 100% lethal in the attack. No team's ever accomplished it. Atlanta's bet just like Barcelona at their primes bet, just like Manchester City's bet right now, just like I think what Xavi wants to do, just like a lot of teams, is we will defend by playing in the opponent's half. We will defend by having the ball, and we will defend by keeping the ball as far away from our goal as possible. That is how they want to defend, rather than we don't care if you have the ball. We don't care where you have the ball, and we will defend closer to our goal with more numbers. They're not going to defend that way. I don't think that's on the table. And it's back to a scale of where you want to do it. And I think what Gonzalo Pineda would like to find as a little bit of an in-between, and I think he's got it a lot of times, honestly. The second goal has nothing to do with it because they skipped it. I think what Atlanta has done pretty well this season is when they have had to drop, and this is something Pineda's talked about multiple times, when they have been beaten with the first line of pressure, the second group, the middle group in the middle third of the field, they've done pretty well. But he wants the team to recognize at times when, okay, the press isn't on, don't drop, but control the middle third. Don't let the opponent come through there. The goal, the first goal is a set piece. It's a turnover. The second goal on Saturday is a long ball over the top that wasn't pressed effectively and allowed to be delivered. That's it. Defensively, you didn't do anything else wrong. But you were also 2-0 down, so there wasn't as much to do. But the talk about defending bad, they're defending bad, they're bad defensively, that's way too vague. They're a good pressing team. They sometimes get beat with their press because every team gets beat with their press. I think their middle third defending is pretty good. High line, they're going to play that because if you're going to press, you can't you can't press and have a line that stays back, because then you're stretched and there's space all over the place so that first line's beaten. You can't do that. When teams do that, it's horrendous. So you can't do that. So if you're going to press up high because you're going to have numbers high because you can win the ball back because you have numbers there, it's better to press. Your line has to be high to condense the field, to shrink the field a little bit. So when you don't put the pressure on and they play the long ball, then that's your risk. That's the risk, and that's what you're betting doesn't happen often. And it doesn't happen often. Did here. Your high line, the question about it, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, if George Campbell was healthy, I think he would have been the replacement for Miles Robinson because he's the most like for like in terms of pace. Alex DeJohn is not slow, by the way. His pace is fine. He's not Miles. George is pretty close. George doesn't have the years of experience that Alex has, the composure that Alex has. George could have been beaten on that 1v1. Miles could have been beaten on that 1v1. The idea that it's all fine if Miles is there is not accurate because we've seen that happen. Because it's the game. But that's the risk. It's not defense in the pure sense of the back line, which is what people are yelling about. It's not Alex DeJohn. For me, that play shouldn't happen because Etienne shouldn't be allowed to hit that long ball as cleanly as he was. That's where it broke down. Because you allowed the 1v1 to happen. That was the issue. And if there's anything defensively that I could snap my fingers and add to this team, it would be that little element of fouling to break up the play more often. And I always think of the RSL game in 2019 where DeBoer was screaming for a foul at midfield and didn't get it, and they scored and won the game. There's so many times that when the press gets broken, and I think Ibarra does a really good job of this, but you need more. Foul. Press gets broken. They can look to hit that ball. Foul. Take them down. Grab them. Take a card if you got to take a card. Foul. If you're going to press and you're going to have a high line and you're going to do everything else, that has to be a more evident element of this. And it hasn't ever been. It's not a brand new thing. That's not happened. Like I said, 2019, that's always the game I think of, and this is an example. But it's got to happen more because it's how you can prevent that situation when that first line's broken. But everything else leads you to play that way because if you're going to get numbers forward, how do you get them back to defend and still get them forward to score goals? You don't get them back to defend. You defend away from your own goal. You defend up high where you have numbers where you expect to be able to turn the ball over. And this team actually does a pretty good job of that. I think their pressing is good in those moments where they turn into a pressing team. But breaking up the play with a foul and preventing that long ball from Etienne, which hasn't been a recurring issue, but it was here, was led to the second goal.
Perfect Tommy with a general question.
Yep.
Why the rash of pitch invasions the past few months and what can be done about them? It's dangerous for everyone and embarrassing. I vote we install a moat filled with sharks and laser beams.
You're getting to that, and you need to put it all over the world. Absolutely horrendous scenes at Saint Etienne, and hopefully there's not too many injuries from it, although there are some injuries. Incredibly thankful that it didn't turn into, and it's a different scenario because I don't know, the fans are attacking their own players for getting relegated. It's not the Querétaro situation where the fans are fighting one another. They're throwing flares at their own players. It's the most despicable thing I've seen. And there's been a lot of despicable things. And it's not the first time Saint Etienne's been involved in this. And I don't care how mad the fans are about the results and how mad the fans are about a potential ownership change that doesn't look good coming forward for them. I don't care. You threw flares at players who wear the team's shirt that you say you support. Get out. Get banned. Get arrested. Like I say, that's assault. Get arrested. Get banned for life. Horrendous. You had an issue in the Netherlands. ADO Den Haag came out and said, like, yes, some of our fans did these horrible things and we are investigating and we will do everything possible to identify and punish. Good. Horrible. I don't know why it's happening more now, Tommy. It's, the conversation has come up and Gareth Southgate talked about it. I don't think he's wrong. Like, the world's a different place than it used to be. That's not going to go away. It's not purely because of COVID and the effects of being in lockdown and all that either. But that's part of it. It factors in. But the genie's out of the bottle, it seems like, in this kind of stuff. And now, how do you not get it back in the bottle? Because I don't think that's possible. But how do you make it abundantly clear that if you do these things, you're not going to get to enjoy that activity ever again in the same way? That's where I'm at with it. And that's where I'm at with FIFA, with UEFA, with CONMEBOL, with CONCACAF, with the CAF, with the AFC. I have not heard of any in Oceania, but if it does, I'm on the Oceanian Confederation as well. All of them have to, and then down to the national federations, and then down to the leagues, and then down to the clubs. It has to be incredibly strong and heavy in you ran onto the field after the game, and right now, nobody should be on the field after the game. There's been too many issues. Yes, that's all. Look at the scenes. It's wonderful. Yeah, and then you got somebody over there trying to pick a fight with Patrick Vieira. Sorry, Everton fans, you blew it. Every other fan, it's not just an Everton thing, but it's wonderful. Look, this is great. No, it's not. Nope, it's not. You got a goalkeeper getting attacked and you got a coach getting provoked. Nope, it's not wonderful. One person doing those things makes it not wonderful. So now it should be no pitch invasion. You get on the field, and it should be announced before every game worldwide. You run onto the field. You're never coming back again. You're never going to be allowed to buy a ticket. And I do not want to hear, because this is what people always do in this crap, I don't want to hear they'll find another way. Good, let them find another way. And when they do, then punish them even more severely. Make them work for it. I don't care if they can find another way. I don't care if they can get a buddy to buy a ticket for them. I don't care. They go them on the field. If you want to go to where it's trespassing and they get arrested immediately, good. If I'm the club, My rule is you come on the field, you're not buying tickets from us ever again. You're banned. And if you find a way in and we find out that you're in, you're arrested for trespassing at that point. And it needs to be announced before every game worldwide. Anytime this happens, it needs to be a ban from now on. And FIFA needs to make that a worldwide regulation because it's out of control. And somebody's seriously going to get hurt worse. And the French league, out of the high-profile leagues, the Big Five, they have been by far the worst with this year. And there need to be some ramifications. And the French league needs to have it. The French Federation needs to have it. I think UEFA probably needs to have it. And if that means that French teams can't host games in international play, so be it. If that means they can't host fans in international play, but they can host the game, so be it. It's been too many issues to not be dealt with at that level. But at the club level, I'm announcing it before every game. You come onto the field, you're arrested, you're banned. We're not going to see you again, period. That's what it's got to be for player safety, for staff safety, for everybody's safety.
The French Interior Minister had a press conference this morning, our time, discussing
which issue were they talking about? Saint Etienne, or how they botched hosting the Champions League final and all of the issues they created with that, because there was a lot of issues that France created amongst themselves.
Champions League. This is specifically Champions League.
Yeah, and this is a different issue. It wasn't people running on the field. This was getting people into the stadium.
Yeah, French Interior Minister has blamed, quote, fraud on an industrial scale, end quote, for chaos at the Champions League final in Paris. But
so that's why trucks were narrowing pathways. That's why vans were parked that narrowed pathways, not anywhere near the gate. That's why people were being shuttled into very small areas to walk through. Yeah, that's why. Sure. Just like you said, the horrendous thing that people came out with initially, saying that it was because Liverpool fans were late. And if you don't know the story behind that, read up on Hillsborough and read up on what the British government did to try to shift the blame on that. That ultimately they were found that didn't happen. That's the excuse that was used. So it's bad enough that it's a bad excuse that was initially given. It's even more upsetting that it happened to a club that has had a horrible tragedy because of mismanagement at a stadium. This was mismanagement at a stadium. I don't care how many. I don't care industrial scale. Shut up. Handle it. And if you can't handle it, put your hands up and say you couldn't. Don't try to create these narratives, and don't ever say it's because the fans were late, and actually shift the blame on the people who bought tickets and were trying to get in. That's what they did initially. They've changed the story multiple times now. And it is shocking and disgusting because they're not stupid. You better do your homework before you make an excuse like that and say that, because I am by no stretch a Liverpool fan, but if you know the game and you know the Hillsborough situation, to use that line, which was the initial line that was brought out in this, is offensive on a level that is incomprehensible.
Gerald Darmanin said thousands of fake tickets caused the mayhem.
No, it didn't.
He said 30 to 40,000 English supporters had gone to the stadium, a figure he said had been confirmed by UEFA and the police, and, quote, found themselves at the Stade de France without tickets or fake tickets. And then he goes,
so now he's going to blame the English fans on this. He's going to blame English fans on this. That's incredible. Go read the stories of people who are. I don't want to hear any more from this punk. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear any more from that guy, because that's two lies straight out of the gate. Go read from the journalists who were involved in this. Go read from players' families who were involved in this, and you'll get a real picture of what happened, because it's not one story up against that narrative. It's a whole bunch of stories. The structure was bad. The plan was bad. The people who were trying to get in without tickets were locals. The people who jumped the gates and jumped the lines and walls and whatever were locals. Oh, and just to top it off, I don't know. Why don't you check out some of the journalists who talk about being, hit upon after the game by gangs who were trying to rob people. You had all the security beforehand and were doing all this. Where were you afterwards? Shockingly bad. And just like I don't think Wembley should host another big European match after what happened with the final, because that was mismanagement too. Stade de France can't host another Champions League final or Euro final or UEFA event. No, not until there's some massive changes in the leadership, because when you come out with excuses that blame the fans, then you come out with excuses that blame people from one country, and you don't take any responsibility for the setup that you had that corralled people into these areas, then you're never going to fix it. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that they're going to try to spin this narrative and spin this yarn. UEFA should just say, yeah, you know what? We're just not going to have any games here.
For those that want to do a little investigating, I think it's in the Sky Sports Twitter account. Kaveh Salkal did a 4.5-minute walk and talk that they've posted to their Twitter feed, where he goes through the entire, and he's outside the stadium, and he literally goes through each and every stage of
There's
all of
quite a few of those, actually, but that's one of the really good ones. Yeah.
So Kaveh did a really good job of breaking down what he saw and broke it down after everyone was in the stadium. So this was, later that evening after nightfall, and he breaks down the entire element as to what he saw. Here's how the fans were cordoned into this one chute. Basically, it was an underpass to a road leading to the Stade de France, and how everything was funneled into this one direction. And it was scarily reminiscent of Hillsborough and what the Liverpool fans were going through. Yep. And there have been people who were both at Hillsborough and were in Paris who have been to both events, and they were interviewed by English media about how scarily similar it was to Hillsborough, what happened there for the final.
Yeah, it's just to have that happen to the same club and the same fan base and people who've been through it and affected by it, and to have it happen again at a Champions League final is shocking. They have said that people who had tickets and were not able to enter because of complete and utter venue incompetence will be reimbursed. Good. That's good. I'm with Rack. Ban, arrest, throw the book. I am fine with a fan ID system if that's what you got to do. I wish you didn't have to, but if that's where you're at, then that's where you're at. And that is across the board on these kinds of issues, and all in the pregame, and also with the people running on the field. If you tie it to an ID, and Mexico's went down this road, and other countries do too, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. It's where the game is right now. It's got to get fixed. You can't just keep sticking your head in the sand. Every big game is having an issue like this right now. Whether it's somebody running on the field, whether it's stuff before a game, it's got to change. There's got to be more. If UEFA, FIFA, all these organizations are going to make so much money from it, yeah, put some of that money to doing these things right. You have to. You have to. Alex, I think that was their intent in corralling things to keep it under control. It never works the way that they did it. And that was one of the points that a couple of the journalists who were corralled into this mentioned, is like every time they've been in this situation, what it does when you don't have everything functioning on the other end and you create these bottlenecks is then you increase anxiety, and then you increase issues, and people freak out because, hey, you've been in line for 3 hours and the game's kicking off in 30 minutes and you paid $500 for a ticket and $1,500 to get there, and people start freaking out, and then you get claustrophobic, and then you get all these other issues. When you do it that way, it never works. It just doesn't. You look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, for example, where you have a perimeter for the Super Bowl. You had a wider perimeter. You didn't funnel people into one area to go through to then get to the gates. I don't think that's ever going to work. I get why they think it might, but it's never been shown to, and it creates more issues than it actually helps deal with. So you got to learn at some point. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who've been involved in venue management who should have like a best practices setup here, and why they would go against that. It's just craziness. Michael says, why did this only affect Liverpool fans? Why not Madrid fans? One thing that was said, one, I think there were some Madrid fans who were affected, but not many. Two, the way the entry points were for the Madrid fans on their end was from a different train station, one, and it was easier to get people through. And you're right, Alex, reputation could have been part of it as to why there was more of a corralling with the English fans, which would be unfair. But one was just the logistics of where the entry points were for the Madrid fans as well. Because it ended up when gates were shut, which makes no sense whatsoever on the stadium side. They ended up like the one journalist, and I cannot remember his timeline. He went through all of this, and they ended up then kind of shuttling the Liverpool fans down to the other end where the Madrid fans were coming through. And it was stupid. It was all stupid. It was horrible management. And you can't manage and don't have the game. You can't manage, you don't get to host the game anymore. It's absurd. Last one for me just before we go, because we've been going for a while and my voice is gone. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, here it was. Content Mind, the one I wanted to get to. Did John Fowling or Tato have been dog-so if he did it way up the field? No. But I think where he would have had a chance to actually foul, they probably would have gone that way. If he had done it at midfield, which he didn't have the opportunity to, no, I don't think that's an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. With Joe Dickerson, look, I don't know what he would have done because he's a box of toys. You never know what's going to happen with him. But where he was able to engage, you're getting into about 40 yards from goal. And if he brings him down in the way he could have at that point, he would have been running a pretty strong risk of it. If he had just grabbed him at the very beginning of it, maybe. But I don't think he really had the opportunity to do it. I don't. I think at that point, you're in the 1v1. You just got to hold it up. We are not going to solve all of Atlanta United's issues on set pieces. We are not going to solve injury issues. We're not going to solve Stade de France. We're not going to solve pitch invasions. We're not going to solve all these issues if we keep going. So we're going to stop.
One other piece of news, though, before we go. Chelsea sale to Bowley Clear Lake is officially announced by the club.
That was announced a couple of days ago, right?
They actually put out the press release. The official press release is now out.
How many press releases are they going to put on this stuff? Because Abramovich already issued a statement, like being happy about everything going down, and that was through Chelsea.
Yeah, and so now Bowley Clear Lake is saying their version of it being completed. So it's officially official on both sides.
Okay, I didn't know that needed more, but yes, it's done, and everything is moving forward, and they got whatever issues with loans and deals sorted out. Plan is for soccer over there tonight. That is the intention. I think we're good for it, but if things change, we'll let you know. Tomorrow morning, normal show in the morning, first Tuesday show in a little bit. We'll be back to normal there. Dylan Butler hopefully will be able to join us if he doesn't get too crazy on a holiday weekend and extended weekend. And we'll start to look ahead with FIFA games coming up with World Cup spots on the line with the Finalissima with Argentina and Italy coming up on Wednesday. Italy released some horrible new jerseys that I've got to talk to Nick Alifi about. We'll talk about all this stuff. We'll talk about Ralph Rangnick and his consultancy. I wonder where you could have heard that would never happen. I wonder where you could have heard that. I don't know, when he was announced. Wonder where that could have come up. Maybe it's a program that you might have heard of. Anyway, we'll talk about all of that tonight, the rest of the week as we go. What I'll say here at the end, first off, I didn't address it last week because, frankly, if I did, I probably would have broken down. And I know today's Memorial Day, which is a very different situation entirely. First off, thank you to everybody who gave the ultimate sacrifice for this country. I didn't talk about the issue in Uvalde last week because every time that I've read anything about it, I have either basically felt like I was going to break down crying or gotten so angry that I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Both usually at the same time. I hope that this show can be a place, no matter what we're frustrated about with games, what we're frustrated about with tickets and stadiums and all of it, that this can be a place where we can escape for a little bit. And I usually do like to talk about what's going on, maybe what we're escaping from. I wasn't capable of doing it last week. I'm still not really all that capable of doing it. And I'm trying to limit my exposure to it because of how upset that it makes me. Can't fix that either, can we? We can't fix all these things that are outside of our individual control. But what we can fix is making the world around us a better place. What we can fix is not being so quick to just jump on things and be negative and be toxic and get angry and make it hard. That's what we can fix. We're all going through different things, whether you know or you don't know, whether they're public or they're not public. We're all dealing with stuff, and we're all doing the best we can to put a brave face on it and make the best of our situation. So many of you are doing that. We're all doing that. Everybody's doing that as best as they can. Cut people some slack. Cut the world around you some slack. Try to make it a better place. We can't fix everything worldwide that we're not happy about. We can't. I wish we could. I want to, but you can't. And you can't get locked down in your head and frozen because of that either. It's specifically about, I think it was a Greenpeace slogan that I always associate with REM, my favorite band in the world. And it was think global, act local. And that is something that we can do about anything in the world. Obviously, be informed and think about how you feel about certain things and think about what you can deal with certain things and what you can't. I've had to be very different with social media over the past few years than I used to be. Used to live on it, used to use it exclusively for my job. I probably am not doing what I do if I don't, but it's gotten to be very hard to do on a lot of different fronts. And when stuff like this happens, it gets to be very, very hard. And I've made the decision, my act local was to try to get away from some of that and to deal with some of that differently. I also try, and it is such a dumb little thing that might be inconsequential, just try to be nice to the people around you as best you can. And the people you don't know, be nicer to them. You know, like people you see, I worked retail for a number of years. I managed retail. The amount of hell that they're dealing with right now, and from people who are dealing with all the things that we're dealing with and angry and taking it out on retail workers, I see it so often. Just say thank you. Just say, how are you doing? Just say, I hope everything's good. Just the people that you can affect positively, try to do it, because it's a really crappy place at times. And it's been crappier in the past week. And it's probably not going to be less crappy anytime soon, sadly. Do the best you can for yourself. Do the best you can for the people around you. But do the best you can for the strangers around you too. And just try to make the world a better place, at least from what you can affect. And don't get locked down by the stuff that you can't. Work at it and try to make it better, but just do the best you can. But treat the people around you as best as you can too. We'll be back later. More content coming up later this week. Hopefully tonight. If not tonight, then tomorrow, because we'll be back tomorrow. I know that much. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.